Here's an example of a difference quotient with a square root in it. Square roots always add an element of chaos to simplifying difference quotients. So first, if we take a look at our square root, we're trying to plug into this difference quotient formula. And so the difference quotient will be found by replacing the x with x plus h. That's the first part here. And then we'll subtract off the function itself. So here we go. So square root, we replace the x with x plus h, and then we subtract off the function. So we subtract off that, and we divide it by h. This is essentially slope. It's essentially the change in function values divided by the change in the horizontal direction. So this is rise over run. Now the tricky thing with these square roots is that to simplify this crazy looking fraction, we multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the numerator. And what this essentially does is rationalize the numerator. Not something that you've done a lot of in algebra classes. So let's see how this multiplication pans out. Notice that we're FOILing in the numerator. So we have this square root multiplied by itself, so we get exactly what's underneath the square root. Now here's a complicated part. When we multiply the outer, we multiply those two together, and we multiply the inner, we get the same product except one is negative and one is positive. So in other words, the inner plus the outer is 0, which is how rationalizing an expression works. Last is minus times plus, so it's minus, and then the square root of x minus 1 times itself will give us what's underneath the square root. We just have to remember that this minus is in front of that whole quantity. In the denominator, we're not going to do any simplification. We'll just leave it as is. Let's go ahead and simplify the numerator. Notice that this minus distributes to the x and to the minus 1. And we're going to have a lot of cancellation. We're going to have x minus x, so those cancel. We are going to have negative 1 plus 1, so that cancels. So we are left with simply h in the numerator and the same denominator. And what you should be noticing is that there is a common factor of h that can now be canceled, leaving us with the final simplified solution of this difference quotient for a square root. Boom.